going to be making crunchy drop biscuits. The bullets at the top is preheat the oven to 450 degrees and place cupcake liners in your muffin tins. So these are not cupcakes, they are biscuits, but we're just going to be putting them in a muffin tin so they're just a little easier in holding their shape, okay? Now the learning targets today is the biscuit method. Now there's three things that we want to reinforce about the biscuit method is we use a hot oven, so 400 and above is a temperature that would be considered hot. We use a cold hard fat, in this case we're using butter, so cold hard butter is used whenever you're making biscuits. And the other one is that you never want to over mix biscuit. You always want to handle it carefully, just a little bit of mixing, not over mixing. Okay, so a hot oven, a cold butter or fat, and a not over mixing are the three characteristics of a biscuit. All right, so we're going to carry on with the recipe, starting with number 1. In a large bowl, sift together the flour, sugar, baking powder, and salt. So for flour, it's 250 mils. Scoop, and then you just want to level off with a straight blade into your sifter. 30 mils of sugar. So the biscuits themselves aren't very sweet, and they generally aren't. So 2 15 mil spoons, 1 and 2. To that, we need our leavening agent. That is what's going to make them rise, so you really don't want to forget this ingredient. And to get 8 mils, I'm going to use my 5, my 2.5, and my 1.5. So it's actually going to be 8.75 mils, but that's okay. About 8 mils of baking powder. So 5 mils, and I like to run it under the paper liner here. 2.5 and 1.25. And then salt, 1 mil. And then sift that into your large bowl. I like to put my hand on the side here and bang it against there, and it just goes a little faster. Number 2 says cut in butter with a pastry blender. So whenever you hear the term cut in and pastry blender, this is called a pastry blender. It's used for cutting in butter. Now 60 mils of butter, 40 mils of butter. Now to get that, this is actually 120 mils of butter. So what I've done is I've taken the block of butter and I've cut off a section about this wide. And then if you imagine, this is 120, so to get 40, you're going to divide it into thirds. And so I just kind of lightly mark it with my knife. And so then I cut off 1/3, and that's going to give you the 40 mils of cold butter. Okay, so that needs to be right from the fridge, so nice and cold. And put that in there, and I'm just going to put that aside. Now, if you do not have a pastry blender, easy problem solved. You probably have a grater, in which case you would grate the butter with a large grater, okay? And that actually does a really nice size of butter of what it would look like if you used a pastry blender. Okay, so use a grater if you don't have a pastry blender. But if you have a pastry blender, I'd like you to do that just to get used to using a pastry blender. When you first start cutting it in, you're just going to press it on top of the butter. And you're just going to work it in. Now in the beginning, it's going to be quite stuck in, so push it off. And then you just keep working it in. I like to turn the bowl. And now I'm just going to go like this and keep working it off and keep pushing it off the pastry blender. Like so. And keep turning the bowl and working it in, pushing it off until it should be about the size of Rice Krispie kernels. And it should be fairly even in size. Okay, so I'm almost there. And when you push it off, when you lift it up, it shouldn't be sticking to your pastry blender anymore. And that's a sign that you've probably done it enough. It looks good. And I'm just going to take one more peek. And there we have it. So there's little bits of butter throughout, but they shouldn't be completely gone, all right? So just a nice texture like that. Now I'm making a well in the middle, and that just means that you're just going to make a depression in the middle for the next step in the recipe, okay? Okay, now number 4 says beat the egg in a small bowl. I'm just going to tap my egg on the counter, open it up, Put it in my small bowl. And I've got here 125 mils of cold milk. I level on the counter in a liquid measuring cup. If you have buttermilk is always a nice addition. With milk works just fine. And then you're just going to take your whisk and give that a good whisk. And it should be well mixed, a little bit foamy looking. Once that's done, I like to just give it a tap, release some of the egg. You're going to use a fork. Now this is really important because, as I said before, biscuit method, you don't want to overmix it. This is similar to muffins in that regard. All right, you're going to pour the liquid in the well in the middle. And now you're just going to mix it just until it comes together. So use your fork and just bring it together. These are called drop biscuits. So these are biscuits that you're going to actually use a spoon to put them into the muffin tins. They're the easiest version of biscuits. In grade 7, you make a rolled biscuit as well as another drop biscuit. Okay, so just until it comes together and then stop. Now, once it's mixed, you're going to level it off. Like so. I'm going to use my spatula here, scrape it off. And once you have it leveled, you are going to draw a line down the middle. And down like this. Divide it in half. Okay, so that's just to portion the dough. One side is one half and one on the other. And I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so now I've got that made. Now in these two bowls are the filling and the topping. In one of them, you're going to put 30 mils of sugar. The sugar is going to be go on the top, so 2 15 ml spoons. 1, 2, and then in the other custard cup is the jam. The jam is going to be the filling. So these are tea biscuits, and so I'm going to put a little bit of jam in the middle. Now, before let me just use this here. I'm using raspberry jam here, homemade raspberry jam. So 2 15 ml spoons approximately. You can use whatever jam you have. If you don't want jam, you don't have to, but it's a really nice addition. These are tea biscuits. Tea biscuits are generally served hot, and then you put butter and jam on there, or clotted cream in what they do in England. So in this case, we're actually making the jelly in the middle of the biscuit. It's going to be kind of like a jelly donut. All right, so I've got my things here. I'll move this over. With your 2 large spoons, you are going to portion the batter into the muffin tin. You're just going to put half of the batter in first, okay? So use your spoon to scoop and push off. And I'm going to use just half of the dough because the other half is going to go on top of the jam. So just make sure it's only half. I dropped a little bit there. Just going to take a little bit more here for this one. Now you're going to come along and you are going to make a little well in the middle of this biscuit dough. So I'm going to take my spoon and I'm just going to make a little pocket in the middle of each muffin cup here with the batter. Doesn't have to be perfect, just a bit of a depression in the middle for the jam, so the jam stays inside the middle of the biscuit. And like that. And now I'm going to use my 2 little spoons, my teaspoons, and I'm going to put a teaspoon in each one in the middle, like that. There, and now I'm going to go back and use the remainder of the batter on top. Now when you're putting it on top, try to put it just a dollop on top without touching the jam, like so. And this will be kind of a surprise filling when you bite into it. These are often some of the students' favorites recipes over the years. Teachers like them too. Often students give the teachers a sample, and I've had teachers come to me and say this was their favorite recipe, so it is well liked. It's quick and easy, not too sweet, and just with the addition of jam, it just makes it that extra bit of specialness. I've got a bit of jam on the top there, but that's okay. And then once you've used up all the batter, you're going to put the sugar on top. 5 mils on each. Now try to make sure they're all the same size. That's really important, just the same as when we made muffins. As far as baking, you want them to bake evenly. Okay, and now I'm just going to take my 5 mil spoon here, and I'm just going to take and spread a little bit of sugar on each. And this is going to add a really nice crunchy top to the biscuits. And that last little bit. And then I'm just going to wipe this off here because that will bake on. Now I'm going to put this in the oven and bake it for about 14-15 minutes. Now it will depend on your oven, okay? So I'll tell you later on about how long mine took, but we're going to say around 14-15 minutes. When you put them in the oven, make sure you use an oven mitt, okay? And put your head back. It's very hot, 450, head back. And I'm going to put my timer on for about 14 minutes. Okay, I've just had a look at my biscuits, and I think they're done. I'm going to pull this out. Yes, they look done to me. Now mine took 13 minutes, or 12 and a half to 13 minutes. It will depend on your oven. Now what you're looking for is golden brown on the top, but also when you push on the middle, they should bounce back. And so mine are bouncing back, so they are definitely done. Okay, so golden brown, and when you push on the middle, they should bounce back. I would suggest that you let them sit for a minute or two, just to cool before you lift them out. You don't want to burn your fingers. And then once they're cool, you're just going to pop them out and put them on a wire rack. I can do that already because I'm not afraid to touch something that's hot, okay? And these are the crunchy biscuits. Remember, they're not muffins. These are biscuits. With mine have a raspberry filling. All right, enjoy. Happy baking.